All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our webinar today on building a bulletproof business. So this is a webinar that we had planned quite a while ago, and obviously before the world had dramatically changed in terms of what's happening in it versus the virus, the COVID-19. We recently did a webinar or a sales session for a sales mastery group on what do we do in terms of selling during this crisis? What can we do? What should we do? What shouldn't we do? And one of the questions that came up in it with that group was, can we still sell in this environment? And that's a great question to ask. And frankly, I believe that is possible, that we absolutely can still sell in this environment, but we have to do it from a position of service, not from a position of taking advantage of people. I've seen some emails come around that people have shown me examples of people who are doing it poorly. And I would just suggest that if you're interested in finding out more about that, feel free to reach out to us. We did record that session on what we can do. So if you have a sales team and you're wondering, can you really prospect? Can you do any of that? And what does that even look like? We did a session on that last week. We'd be happy to share that link with you. So today's topic, though, is about looking forward, because we will get through this. We look back at 1918 was the last pandemic. The world got through it. We will get through coronavirus. We will, a year from now, probably look back on this and have some reflection about what we learned, what we took away. And hopefully, as businesses and business people, we got better at what we did. We became better leaders, or sales teams, or teams in general became better. Or organizations became better. And it's going to be a rough ride right now. And for some of us, it's pretty scary, right? There's a lot of fear and uncertainty about what's going to happen. I just believe that as a society, and as we're going to help each other as much as we can. I know at Sandler, we're making free resources available. We are reaching out to everybody. We will be providing you with some free e-learning. We're also looking at adding some more frequent webinars to kind of help support people in our network. We do have a digital sales webinar coming up at the end of April. I'll talk about that at the end of this webinar as well. So we want to be there to support anyone on this call or anyone in our network. And we have a servant attitude right now. We just want to help people get through it and come out the other side better. So this seminar or this webinar is really around how do we get to that next level in the future, right? So we're going to be a little bit forward looking, maybe pretending a little bit that we're not in the middle of this crisis, because we're going to look at, under normal conditions, what are some of the things that we need to do to build a bulletproof business. So focus of today really is people who are business owners. If you're maybe not in a leadership position yet, but want to be, C-level, VP executives, business managers, anything around leadership. We're going to be focusing on building that team. We're going to be giving you some core tips and ideas and things that you can take away from this webinar that you can also use to strengthen your team in the future. And what does that really look like? So Sandler is involved with thousands of different people across the network. Oops, sorry. And as part of that, we poll a lot of our clients and we ask them about this concept of blind spots. So blind spots are really just things that are happening in our businesses that really cause us some issues, make us not hit our goals and targets, really restrict our growth. That's what a blind spot is. And so these were the top 13 blind spots that when we went out, poll the people we work with, poll our clients, this is the stuff that came back to us. And so a blind spot is something that we're not really paying attention to. Maybe we've talked a little bit about it, but it's not really something we focused a lot on in our businesses to really create growth or to really make sure that we're on a solid footing. So we got 13 of them up here. We're not going to have time to talk about all of them today. We are going to pick and choose a couple. All of these blind spots are outlined in our book that we showed at the beginning called The Road to Excellence. We do have that book available if you're interested. It's also connected to our Leadership for Organizational Excellence program that we also offer companies. So It is outlined in the book some more. If you're interested, again, you can reach out to us and find out or get that book from us at the end of the webinar. We'll talk about it again. So you notice we got all of these 13 blind spots. And the thing about a blind spot is sometimes we have them and then we don't have them. In other words, it doesn't mean they're forever. Like, so right now, maybe you're not doing a lot of hiring. So point number one, not having a process for hiring, not really a blind spot for your company, right? And frankly, in the next probably 4 to 6 months, maybe not at all, because we're in the just kind of survival mode. But at some point, this may come up again as we start to get back to normal. That could become a blind spot again. Maybe another blind spot right now is, failing to train and coach management. Well, maybe you've worked on that in the past, but then as your organization's changed and as you've morphed, right, you've gone maybe up a level, maybe you've added more people, you really worked on that blind spot 2 years ago. It went away, you had some great processes, but nobody's really looked at it again. And now all of a sudden we're back to where we were with that one. And so blind spots can come and go, and we're not trying to, we're not passing judgment on companies. This is normal. This is absolutely normal that you are going to see things come into play and then out of play depending on what you're focusing on. And that's human nature. That's the human condition. So don't be concerned if you go, well, Chad, I really worked on that one. I thought we had that one nailed, and all of a sudden, boom, right, comes back. It's not to say we're not a great company. It's just that's a lot of that. What depending on what we're focusing on and where we're trying to grow, you're going to see some of those things happen, right? And we just got to come up and deal with them as they show up. So we're gonna basically get to a few of the meatier ones, the ones that we hear a lot from the companies we work with. Spend a little time focusing on those ones, so that we make sure that we have the right tools in place for that. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is onboarding. And I have a little poll for you here that I'm going to open up because there's 4 questions I want you to look at, and I want to make sure that we, oh, all right. Sorry, I just got to get the poll question up. So we're going to launch this first poll for you. And so essentially what I'd like you to do is look at the poll. We've given you 4 options, and just pick the one that applies most to your organization at this point in time. All right, take a second if you have a chance to look at the poll. All right, maybe your poll is broken because we have 0 response right now. So we're going to just keep going and talk a little bit about onboarding. So improperly onboarding, a lot of times we have that hire and forget option where we bring somebody on board and we go, hopefully they work out. We got them some business cards. We got them some things that they needed. We throw them in a seat and hope for the best, right? That's sometimes the problem that we have, is that we don't really have a plan to onboard. Sometimes the issue is that, we just think they're going to get it all by osmosis. So we say, you know what, you're going to sit next to Sally, you're going to sit next to Bill. And then when you sit next to those people, frankly, you'll absorb all their knowledge and hopefully it all works out. The thing is, a lot of times we don't know what Sally and Bill are saying to them, and then we wonder why things don't happen or things don't get adopted. So one of the key challenges that we sometimes see, especially on sales teams, is when we bring people on and we look at CRM adoption. So sometimes we have real struggle getting people to use the CRM, and we're like, what's the issue here? Why are people not using that tool? What's happening? What's missing? And so what we find out is when we sat them with Sally and Bill, they said, you know what? Yeah, that CRM tool, it's such a pain in the rear. Don't worry about it. Not that important. I'm not sure that, you should really be that concerned about it. And that's why we don't see, as we onboard new people, they're not using it, right? And we go, "Whoa, what happened there?" Um, Sometimes we have a plan for onboarding and we think we have a plan, but the plan really is just around HR policies, maybe, processes and procedures, really nothing specific around how they do their job and what they need to demonstrate to you. We see this a lot in the sales role. You bring people on board and there's really no clear expectations around what onboarding is and what it should really look like. So when we're talking about onboarding, what we're really talking about is identifying the top skills that they are going to need to be able to do or behaviors they're going to need to be able to execute. So a lot of times companies don't have that. So when you bring somebody on board, they don't give them that list. It's maybe implied, maybe you hope they pick it up, you hope they bring some of this to the table. I meet with a lot of business owners and say, Chad, we want a real hunter out there. We want them to go prospect. And they think they've communicated what those behaviors are, but they don't really explain them. So when we talk about onboarding, you need to have like a top 20 list of behavioral items that you want them to do or skills, right? So it's listed out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in order, not just, hey, have the skill. Because if you wrote a skill down in the number 3 position, but it's number 40 on the list of importance, why are we going to spend time getting that up to speed? There's lots that somebody who's new to an organization has to absorb in a very quick amount of time. And let's make sure they're doing the most important things first, right? So we're going to have that. And then we got to be able to give them an example of what it looks like. So let's say you said, I want somebody to prospect. Awesome. Well, that means you probably have to pick up the phone and call somebody, right? What does that sound like? So a lot of times we don't even have that example of that for them. We don't have anything recorded from our current teams. We don't have any phone calls recorded. We don't have any examples to give them. So it's up to us as leaders to give them the example. What does that sound like? So it might sound something like, well, if we're an ABC widget company, we might say, this is what a 30-second commercial sounds like for us, right? And so you say, hey, Bill, it's Chad with ABC Widget Company. Typically, we help organizations in your space who are struggling with, producing more widgets on their own. Sometimes they're not making enough of the right widgets and they want to make more of them, but they don't know how. And as a result, they're not growing. Or sometimes they're just worried that they want to be ahead of the widget game, right? They want to make sure that they have the latest and greatest widgets, and their research and development department isn't that great. Any of those things worth talking about. That's a 30-second commercial, right? So if we have a sales team, they should be able to know what our 30-second commercial sounds like, and then be able to give it, demonstrate it. So create the list, right? Once we've created the list of the behaviors, examples of what it sounds like, what are the behaviors, what do they look like, give them samples, whatever that looks like. And then you need a timeline for when they need to demonstrate it back to you. So in 3 weeks, you need to be able to do a 30-second commercial in the widget space, right? So now we've created an actual timeline for when you're going to show it back to me that you've done this. And then, of course, once you've done that, right now, we've checked that off the list. That's been properly onboarded, right? So yes, you've passed it, or no, you need to go back and do some remedial work. Maybe it's with a process. Maybe you have a certain process they need to be able to execute. Paperwork needs to be done a certain way. Again, examples, and then test it, right? Go back and audit. Make sure you understand that. So when I ran a team of 10 salespeople for onboarding, we created a very structured onboarding approach. Of course, we brought in HR and we brought in health and safety. We had all those pieces, but we also had the behavioral pieces. So in our world, you had to be able to execute a 1.5-hour sales call. So at the start of it, first of all, you needed to learn product knowledge. So we had product knowledge testing, right? We wanted to make sure you understood the product knowledge and could pass an exam. Once you could pass the exam, the next thing is you needed to then sell to me inside of our showroom. So we had that as, okay, we're going to demonstrate what a sale looks like, and then you need to show it back to us. So then we ran a sales call in our showroom. The next step is you needed to do it in the environment we sold in. So in my past life, we sold in people's houses. So I would then get somebody's house, and we would then run a complete sales call from walking up the driveway, walking around the house, providing a quote, and closing the deal. You had to be able to run a complete sales call, and then I would mark you on different elements of your call. Only once you completed all those did we put you in front of a live customer, because our leads were very important to us and they were valuable. So an onboarding plan has to have those elements. It has to have the top behaviors. It has to have demonstration. You have to have examples of what those things even look like, either behaviorally or process. They have to show them what it looks like. They have to be able to come back to you and demonstrate it and pass by a certain period of time. Once you've done that, you've probably properly onboarded. There's way too many times, the hiring process, people go, yeah, I don't know, we hired, the guy didn't work out. And if you start to look at your cost of hiring and turnover, it's incredibly expensive. And if you don't onboard people properly, they might quit because they're going, I don't have the support. This company's completely disorganized. They want me to go do something. I don't even know how to do it, right? And then they are judging me on whether I did it or not. People don't want to stick around for that, and they'll leave, right? They won't feel like they're connected to your organization. So it's really, really important that you don't have the hire and forget concept. The other concept is, how long does it really take for a new hire to become profitable in your organization? If you have a very good onboarding program, that number, if you track it at all, and 85% of the people we talk to don't track that, right? How long till they're profitable, till they're contributing? If you can shorten that by really good onboarding, that's all money to the bottom line. And that works for any department that we might be having out there. So we want to make sure that we're driving that number to the bottom line. Really, really critical. The other thing that people often think, if I hire people with experience, I don't need to onboard them. But we don't know where that experience came from. We have no idea what the value is of that experience inside of our organization. We don't know what their interpretation of specific words are as well. And we need to make sure it fits our culture and our organization. So do not, just because you hire somebody with experience, does not mean you just kind of throw them to the wolves and go, well, you did it somewhere else, you probably can do it here, right? That's not what we want to do. So the other one that really comes up, and I think we'll try a poll again here and see if we get it working this time. We're going to drop a poll out there. And this one is about corporate goals to personal goals. So we want to throw this poll open out to you. Hopefully everybody can see that and contribute. There's 4 options there. All right, looks like our poll is working now. So we'll give you guys another 20 seconds to contribute to the poll. All right, we'll be shutting the poll down here in about 5 seconds. All right, we'll shut the poll down. All right, so we're going to share the results. So it looks like when we had people answer it, the majority fall in the 2 options. One, I have my goals, but don't know what my people's goals are. And I have a vague idea of what my team's goals are, but maybe not a very specific one. So I want to talk about this, why this is really important for us in terms of goal setting and corporate goals. So frankly, people do not come to work for your goals or your company's goals. They don't. They come to work for their own goals and their own desires. And the real thing we're missing, where the real energy happens between people who work for us and or company, is when we can combine those 2 things, when we can have a true understanding of where people are in their journey in life and where they want to go and what we can do for them, right? That's really, really important. So goals. People are motivated by their own goals. So what motivates them? So in my world, again, I was a salesperson for a long time, and everybody thinks salespeople are always motivated by money, like how much money they make, how much money they bring in. And don't get me wrong, I think all of us like some form of income and money, right? It's really great. But the real issue isn't so much the money; it's what do we do with the money, right? How does that really work? Some people are also motivated by title, like progression, the ability to do something new in their role, right? They want new and different. They get bored. They don't want to be stuck in one role forever. It's very important for them to have some kind of career path or something that's going to challenge them. Sometimes that's it. Sometimes people are motivated by time or free time, right? They really want to know that in their world, can we actually get more free time? The point is, you don't know unless you've had these dialogues with your staff. You don't know oftentimes what motivates them, and you assume you know because you just kind of reflect your own belief system on them and go, well, you know what? I'm motivated by money. So therefore, you must be motivated by money. So we're going to put all these awesome bonuses out there, and we are going to run all kinds of contests, and you're going to get money. Only to find out that the initiatives just kind of just fall flat on their face, and everybody's going, how come nobody bought into that? And how come they didn't care about that? Usually it's because we never asked. We just never asked, right? So part of this is, as a leader, you need to be somebody who's approachable. You need to build this into your talk track. You need to talk about goals. You need to build this into your sales meetings. We often talk about 3 business, 2 personal, right? When we interact with people who work for us, we should be asking, hey, what are your 3 business goals for the next 90 days? And by the way, what are 2 personal goals you're working on? Now, sometimes the pushback I get is people say, well, yeah, that's too personal, right? I don't want to share, or somebody doesn't want to share. And that can happen because they probably never have experienced it before, and they don't know what to do with this. As a leader, you need to go first. You need to share your goals. You need to share what you're trying to do. You need to make it a safe environment to do that. So step one is absolutely doing it on your own, sharing with your people, sharing what you're doing, talking about your personal goals. Very important, because then they know, oh, okay, this is an environment that this happens in. This is very important. Of course, when you onboard people, you need to set them up that this is how we work here. We talk about goals, we set targets, and we set things that we want to achieve. So again, it's part of our process. It's part of how we run business. But we need to make sure that we have that in place, and we have to understand it. So I'll walk you through a typical conversation you might have. Let's say it's with a salesperson. It might sound like this. Let's pretend you had $1 million quota and you hit your $100,000 bonus, right? What would you do with that $100,000? So it's not the money, it's what would you do with the money? And maybe they would say, I would send my kids to college, right? That's really important to me. I want to be able to send my kids to any college they want. How motivated would that person then be when you talk about hitting goals and targets that gets their kids to college? Not about, hey, if you hit that bonus, right? Oh, we win as a company. If you hit your target, we need you to hit your quota. I know you need me to hit the quota, but honestly, it's my family that's the most important thing. And we need to talk about that. What is it about the goal for them, right? And if they hit that quota, obviously the company wins as well. And there's many ways to tie personal goals. I saw another company had health goals, right? They knew that if we had healthy staff who were not, if we had fewer sick days and people who were happy, or they would treat our customers better. So they knew that based on the studies out there, that if we treat our customers better and are happier when we do it, we get more referrals or business goes up. So they had a health goal. What they did was they got all of their people to give them their personal health goal. One of those goals was a lady shared that she wanted to run a half marathon. That was her health goal. Her vice president was a runner. So when he found that out, they set up a plan with her to help her get to that goal. So they set up a training plan. They even gave her some money toward using for a trainer, because they thought that was really important. Now, it didn't directly impact the business. Her running a half marathon did not make the business more money, but it made her more engaged because the company cared about her personal goals and were willing to help her get there. The VP, his bonus was tied into her hitting her goal on the health side, which is also very interesting, I thought. So if she didn't hit that half marathon, he actually lost money. So he was pretty engaged with her trying to do this. So he would run with her. He would talk about it. He made sure that she got there, and she did do the half marathon. At the end of it, she said she could not believe a company cared that much about their employees to help them do something that in their own life made a difference for her, but she couldn't see the connection. But when you look at it just from a few steps back, you have a very engaged employee who wants to be there, who feels like they are part of something other than just making money because that company cared about her personal goals. Now, I'm not saying every company can do that. I'm not saying you should do that. But if you can at least connect the dots between personal goals and company goals, you're going to be way, way further ahead. So I want to go to our next slide. No common language. All right. So what does this really mean, no common language? So the problem is in a lot of organizations, we talk in many different languages, right? Depending on our specialty, depending on what we do. So the accounting department has a language, right? And that one's pretty defined, right? P&Ls, right? People know what that is. There's no debate. You know, what's a P&L? I call it this, you call it that. So in that world, in accounting, it's pretty locked down, right? What are the words we use? How do we communicate? Profit, loss, all that kind of stuff. There's commonly accepted accounting language because that lets people streamline conversations. They can get to the point way quicker internally and they understand it. They get it, right? Marketing is another department in a lot of companies. And that world used to be pretty like, yeah, maybe not that much of a common language there. They've gotten much better, frankly, digitally, just because of things like SEO, right? That's now come into play. So they know some of those words. They talk about personas. They talk about who's our best fit customer, right? Those are some of the language that's in the marketing side. A lot of times the common language does not exist on the sales team though, and that's where we run into problems. So we're going to show another little quick poll out there. This is just about common language in your business. We're going to launch one. And if you can take a second to give us some feedback on where you're at with this. So when we talk about common language, number one, we all speak a different business language, makes it very difficult to communicate. Sometimes this is across departments, can be a real problem. Sometimes we're sort of on the same page, right? Not always, you know, kind of like a little bit of a disconnect there. And sometimes if we have created that common language and maybe it's a common purpose around what we do and why we do it, where everybody knows what they're doing, that's where we get some real synergies here. So we'll give people a few more minutes to do the polling. Sorry, not minutes, seconds. All right, looks like we're getting some traction on the middle one. We're sort of on the same page, but sometimes we miscommunicate. We're getting some of that. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the same language. So when we talk about any front-facing clients, when we talk about, or sorry, front-facing staff, let's say it's customer service people, inside sales, sales teams, things like that. A lot of times we don't know kind of the common steps around what we do and why we do it. We use words like, hey, are they going to close, right? Where are they in the funnel? What's the likelihood we're going to get some business out of this? And those are all kind of words that we know what they mean, but we're really not sure. You know, when somebody gives us an answer, there's a lot of room for miscommunication. And so, you know, what does it mean to prospect? This is a word that, frankly, man, that can mean almost anything, right? So if somebody says, hey, are you guys out there prospecting? And they're like, yeah, of course we're prospecting. Only to find out that they're doing something completely different. They're actually not prospecting. What they're doing is they're just managing inbound leads. Big disconnect, right? And as a result of that disconnect, sometimes we don't find out soon enough that we're going off the rails. We're going down the wrong road. We don't find out at all. Like that's something kind of last minute, and then we're in real trouble. Sometimes we don't even know what the gates are in the sales process to actually, predict where this person's going to, is this job even going to close? Are we going to even get this business? Because we don't understand our sales process. We don't understand where they're at in terms of their decision making because we haven't defined it. And so it makes it very difficult as leaders to coach and train because we don't know what the language is. We don't know what the processes are. We don't know what the steps are. And we just kind of say things like, well, let's make it happen. Let's just do it. Let's just, work the system, work the leads or whatever it is that we're doing. And, makes for much longer conversations, makes for more emails back and forth. Again, very confusing for a lot of people. And then it lengthens our onboarding. So all of those things are issues that we have when we don't have a common language. So you got to make sure that as an organization, can you, if you could get one of these, could we become more effective? And so the first question we put up there, in terms of performance review, personal approach or definitions to describe key activities, objectives, and completion benchmarks. If we all know what those are, that's just clarity. And when we have clarity, we can move the needle so much faster and so much quicker. I want to go to another issue here, not focusing on lead generation, right? This is another blind spot. Now, I understand right now this could be a bit of a tough one because right now we're just trying to, frankly, survive. I think a lot of people, and this is the question I've had, can we actually do lead generation in this climate? And we believe you can still do lead generation. There is an opportunity to get out there and talk to people and, have conversations. Even if there's no net new money at this point, there are people we can be reaching out to. They're hunkered down, maybe they're working from home, but you can still reach out on email, LinkedIn, phone calls, and have some conversations. But when we get back to regular life, lead gen, right? A lot of times this is where we kind of get confused. And one of the questions that we need to ask is, how many new conversions do we need in order to hit our quota every year? Like, what does that even mean? Naturally, in any business, there's attrition. We always lose a certain number of our leads, right? Clients. There's always going to be businesses shutting down. There's always going to be things happening that we can't even anticipate. There's going to be maybe one of our best clients gets bought out, and now we lose the business because they go with their current supplier and it's not us, right? There's always something happening. So we're going to put a quick little poll up there for lead generation, just to get a sense for people on the call. Where are you guys at with this? We'll give you a minute to respond. So there's 4 options on that lead gen. Number 1, we hope for more leads, right? I call it hopium. Number 2, we get some leads, but don't know what happens. We have no idea what happens to them. Number 3, we should do more lead gen, but don't know how. And number 4, we track our lead generation behavior regularly, right? We're totally on top of that. So I'll give you guys a second or two to give us some responses there. Looks like it's pretty evenly split across the poll right now. All right, we'll give you guys another 10 seconds to weigh in on the poll. All right, let's wrap it up. And we'll share some of the results. We kind of got all over the place. We have some people on the top end. In other words, we track, we pay close attention to this. And of course, we have people at the bottom end and a few in the middle. So here's the thing about lead gen, right? Maybe we're doing it right now. And as we grow people and staff, maybe that kind of goes away. We have to make sure we always keep our eye on this one. So a lot of companies struggle to feed that funnel. And how do we know who's a suspect? How do we put people on that list? And we want to make sure that we avoid bad decision making. So a lot of that bad decision making around lead gen comes when we have to cut our margins in order to get people to buy from us because we're not filling the funnel with the right kinds of people. So the other thing is, how are we getting the conversations that we need to get every week? What are the behaviors that are going to do that for us? Every company, depending on your market, depending on your best fit customer, you're going to require different kinds of behaviors. For some people on the call, that behavior simply might be cold calling. You're going to get on a phone and you're going to call a list of 100 people. You need to do that in order to reach the right people. For other people on this call, you can use LinkedIn very effectively because you're in the B2B market. You can find your best fit client on LinkedIn and you can send them a connection request, and then you can send them an in-mail to even get them to respond to you, right? And that's very successful. There's lots of businesses right now dramatically growing their inbound through LinkedIn, right? That's another way of doing it. Some of you might, it's the old fashioned walk-in, right? You're going to walk into some, a business and you're going to talk to people. Probably not right now, but down the road, that's your primary, right? That's the one that's turned over a lot of success for you. So you need to identify what are your top things, right, that get you the right conversations. What are the things that you do that get you the right conversations? You have to identify the top sources you get your leads from. Where are they coming from? And focus on the top 3. Now, I almost guarantee you, when we just did a survey for lead gen, the number one source of new leads by far in our network is referrals, right? We had all of our clients respond to this the survey that we did on how do you find new leads, or what does that even look like, and referrals is the number one. I would assume that for people on this call, referrals is also a big part of what you do and how you get new business. There's a few ways to get them. There's passive, right? Some of you might just go, well, you know what? We provide great service. We respond to all our customers and we get inbound. Perfect. Love it. I would suggest, though, there's an element of outbound proactivity that your team or your people can do to generate more referrals, more introductions. What we know about referrals is about 20% of people will give them to you without asking. 60% will do it if you ask, and 20% will never do it no matter what. So we want that 60%, right? How are you set? What's your referral strategy that your sales team is currently using to generate leads, right? Whether that's putting it in your subject line, hey, we love a good referral, whether that's running a referral program, you give them a gift card or like a coffee somewhere. I don't know, maybe it's simply just asking, right? Maybe that's your referral strategy. And then, of course, you should be tracking that. The way you ask it, do you actually get introductions? Who on your team is really successful at it, and can you do more of it, right? So that's also part of the process. We want to make sure that we know what our top lead sources are, and we want to manage things we can control. This is the other part of it. We can't control our quota. We cannot control if people buy from us or don't buy from us. All we can control is the behaviors we're going to do. What are we going to do? How often are we going to do it? Are we going to use LinkedIn? Are we going to use the phone? Are we going to are we going to email people? How many, how often, and to who, right? Those are the things we need to do. The biggest pushback I get from sales teams on lead gen is, Chad, I do not have time. I am so busy. You don't understand. And this is why time blocking your calendar is so, so important. You have to block time in your calendar to do this behavior. If you say you're going to do it when you're not busy, no time. No time. You're always responding to emails and phone calls and problems. So you have to block it in your calendar. It has to be non-negotiable. It has to be consistently done. Everybody should have some kind of lead generation behavioral activity that gets more people in the pipeline. So really important, a real danger for a lot of companies. I want to talk about another one here on coaching. Not knowing how to coach. This is a major, major problem for a lot of people. So I'm gonna launch this coaching poll as our last poll today. So we put 4 things out there, and number 1, I have no time to coach. I'm too busy solving problems. Number 2, I coach when there's a problem by telling people what to do better. I call it the shouldas. You should have done this, and you should have done that, and you should have done that. And I think we got to be careful with that. Number 3, I would coach more if I knew how to do it. I'm not that comfortable with it. And number 4, I have preset coaching times with my team, and it is critical for our long-term success. And I said preset. This is where I don't see a lot of this in a calendar. So we're going to give you guys a little bit of time to answer this one. And again, we got kind of all over the map. So we got a few of you who are doing a real good job of it. Hopefully we can give you some ideas here. And a few of us would like a little more information on how to do this. All right, so coaching. How do we cover the gap? What does coaching really mean? What is an actual coaching plan? So a lot of us, frankly, what we do is we coach to crisis. So we say, yeah, I coach, Chad. I coach all the time. When there's a problem in front of us, I'm all in, right? I'm all there trying to help people through that. And I've seen sales, or I've seen all kinds of leaders do this. And usually it's problem solving, not coaching. So when we talk about it, there's a few things that as leaders that we need to think about, and just some processes around coaching that can help us get better. So a lot of times we talk to our salespeople and they say, hey, you know what? If you're going to go on a sales call, you need a pre-call plan. You need something to get you ready for it. So when I talk to sales leaders or leaders in general, do you have a pre-coach plan? Pre-coach. What does that mean? Number one, reminders, right? Where's your headspace at? You are not training, you are coaching. So this is where I see a big disconnect. So what happens, right? We're talking to somebody in this meeting and we hear something we don't like, or they bring a problem. What do? We start telling them, well, do this. Did you do that? Did you do that? Well, I would have done this. And we think we coached. We go, I coached. I was coaching, Chad. I told them what they did. I fixed the problem. That's not coaching. Coaching is taking somebody with a skill that they already have, helping them self-discover their own gap, because then they own it, and then working on a plan to close the gap, right? What's the plan, right? What is this going to look like? That's coaching. So that's the big mistake I see with a lot of leaders, is that's not how they approach coaching at all. So number one, what's your mindset? What is your mindset going into it? It's not training. Number two, we call it IR. Remember to preserve people's identity. Identity versus role. And Sandler, we talk a lot about I versus R theory. The role is the role they're playing. So if you're managing a sales team, you're managing them in a sales role. Their I is their identity. It's who they are, right? It's not the role of a salesperson. They might not be doing great as a salesperson. Doesn't mean they're a bad person at all, right? So we got to make sure that we're always reinforcing their I. Hey, I think you're an awesome human being. I think you're a great person. Let's talk about you in this sales role. What's happening, right? What's missing? What are some of the things that you are struggling with, right? It's all about the questions we ask to help them self-discover. So I want to make sure that my mindset is right. Definitely really important. And then, of course, what are the convenient truths? Okay, I call these convenient truths. So a convenient truth is something that people bring to me, but it's not an absolute truth. So in sales, I often hear the convenient truth, something around, hey, we're getting beat up on price all the time. I don't know what to do, right? That's the convenient truth. But the absolute truth, it's never about price, right? I got to make sure I'm not getting sucked into the convenient truth. Mindset. What's my mindset as a coach? What am I there for? Nurture, right? I got to make sure I nurture them because I need honesty. I need them to be vulnerable with me. I need to challenge them to be better and to be different. And I need to be demanding, right? My purpose as a coach is to elevate the team. I need to get you better at what you do. We need to bring up the bar. I cannot accept mediocrity. So I got to have that mindset. And lastly, what are my questions? What am I going to ask? What's going right? Who's responsible for that? And what's broken or needs improvement? If you just took those three questions into your coaching call, I guarantee you, you'd have a very different experience. Three questions. What's going right? Right? Who's responsible for that? That's all helping them make sure they preserve their I. And what's broken and needs improvement? I am trying to create self-awareness with my person I'm coaching. They have to be able to know and be aware what's going well and what's not going well. And they need to then work on a plan. We need to work on that and develop that together. So we need to have some of those in place to make sure that we are getting people to that next level. A couple other things I want to share with you just on the coaching side that's going to help. It has to be pre-planned. couple of ideas for you around planning this. We call it the Monday morning check-in, right? So depending if you have a team, 5 to 8 or anything like that, you could have a Monday morning check-in, right? It's a very short call, very little. So we talk about what the activities are going to be for the week. We could talk about their 3 goals for the week, a good goal, something around self-development, a little discussion around why those goals versus something else. How are we going to measure progress toward those goals? What are the consequences if we don't hit those? And how can I help? Right? That's what I call the Monday morning check-in. The power is in the habit of doing it. So there's a statement out there, and I don't remember who said it. It says, the chain of habit is light until they become too heavy to break. We want to create that habit, right? So if we're going to create a coaching environment and one of setting standards and being demanding, right? We're not going to tell them what they should be doing. We're going to get them to tell us. That Monday morning check-in meeting can be incredibly valuable for that. So again, what are the activities for the week? What are their 3 goals, right? And again, self-development, something around that. Why did they pick those goals? How are they going to measure their progress? What are the consequences and how I can help? That's a Monday morning check-in. If you couple that with what we call the Friday afternoon checkout, right? So we have the Monday morning check-in, Friday afternoon checkout. How do they do? Performance versus goal. How did that look? Performance, what did they actually do versus the goal they set themselves? Do they have any specific hits and misses? What drove that? And what should they start? Any behaviors they need to start doing? What should they stop doing? Or anything they should continue? So we can build in these mini coaching sessions through that Monday morning check-in and the Friday afternoon checkout, right? We got 2 options here. The coaching call that we described that is more of a longer call. It's probably going to take you 30 to 45 minutes to do a real coaching call where we start with those 3 questions. Because you're going to get into, again, it's what are we going to find out? What are some of the dialogue we need to have with that person? We want them to self-discover, and that's going to take a little bit of time. So that's more of a, probably a monthly thing that you should have on your calendar and do it consistently. The other thing I wanted to share, if we have a team, we call it the Monday morning stitch meeting, right? It's because we want to stitch the team together. So part of our coaching habits is to get compliance with certain behaviors and activity. And a stitch meeting can be very valuable to create that level of expectation with the team around behaviors, attitudes, and expectations. So we talk about, hey team, what's the most important critical meeting today? So we can go around the table with that. What does the decision you want at the end of the meeting? What's going to be your upfront contract, or we call it upfront contract for that call? And then can you shoot me a pre-call plan on that? So what's the purpose of this? Accountability, 30 minutes every morning with the team. It creates that peer pressure. We're all in this together. We're all working at it. And then we get compliance to some of those behaviors. So as a sales leader, sales manager, this coaching element is probably one of the most underused things. It's kind of like listening. Everybody believes they're a great coach, but they're not asking any questions. They're not real. And if they are asking questions, they're tactical ones. They're just really around, activities and behaviors and solving problems. But the goal really is self-discovery coupled with a gap that they need to cover, coupled with some behavior that's going to help them cover it with a follow-up and a date and a time. If you elevate your team, if you elevate everybody 10, 15%, think about what the value is going to be as a group, in your company. What does that even look like? So we looked at a few elements today of some of the key things in terms of blind spots. There's other ones out there, and they're covered off in this book called The Road to Excellence. Great book, covers a lot of these blind spots. A lot of what we covered today, we cover in a lot more depth in our Leadership for Organizational Excellence program that we do with a lot of organizations to really help them hit that bar and cover off any blind spots. As part of this today, if you're interested, we do have, the book is available. If you're interested in that, we'd love to provide that for you. Just let us know. You can reach us through email or, just go to our website. We're happy to provide that as well. And then, of course, the other side of it, we are running another webinar at the end of the month on digital sales, going digital. And based on the situation that we have happening in the world today, it could be maybe very valuable for a lot of your sales team to be on that one as well. If you have a team, we would love to have you as part of that. So at this point, we're going to wrap up for today. If you have any questions that you want to ask us, we hang around for a little bit. Very happy to do that. Otherwise, I hope you found some value in kind of this, what are some of the bullets or some of the blind spots in your business, and hopefully we can help you create that bulletproof business in the future.